I went to the wedding of a junior colleague from work, only for the bride to say, "People with a low education and who are poor should sever ties with my husband." She was looking down on me because I dropped out of school. Rather than stopping her, my colleague, the groom, joined her in mocking me. I decided then and there to cut them out of my life and reach out to someone. Get ready, because I'm going to make you regret ever judging people solely on their education. My name is Gudwin and I'm 32. I was raised in an average family, neither rich nor poor. The only son of working parents. What sets me apart is that while most of my classmates were thinking about high school, I was frantically searching for a job. Both of my parents are college graduates, but I was eager to start working as soon as possible. At first, they were confused but eventually supported me, saying it's my life to live as I see fit. I first worked as a factory laborer in my hometown, then switched jobs to become a painting contractor site supervisor. Now, I've been employed at a publicly traded major machinery manufacturer for 7 years. I'm a service department manager, visiting clients to handle machinery installation, repairs, and maintenance. Today, I have another round of repairs and maintenance visits planned. As I drive toward the freeway in the company car, my work cell phone rings. Seeing the displayed company name, my mood sinks a little. Not again. I pull over and call back immediately, only to find out it's another complaint from a client. I apologize. I'll be there right away, okay? I bow my head apologetically, phone in hand, even though the person on the other end can't see me. Now, I have to rearrange my schedule to handle this complaint first. Going to be a long day. After 7 p.m., I return to the branch office and find Theodore from my service department already back, chatting happily with a colleague from sales. I'm back. Good job noticing me. Theodore quickly heads back to his seat and starts working on his computer. Each branch office in various regions is staffed by a small team and overseen by an area manager. In this branch, it's just Theodore, who is 2 years younger than me and myself in the service department. Hey, Theodore, got a minute? What is it? You could hear the irritation in his voice. Got a complaint from one of your clients this morning. I wanted to fix it myself, but we're both going tomorrow to apologize. Why did you leave it unattended for 2 days? I had plans both days. The CEO over there is always bossing me around. Maybe they should rethink how they treat me. As usual, all that comes out of Theodore's mouth are excuses and complaints about the client. I'm reporting this to the area manager. I had to step in and fix a client's issue, of course. I have to report it. Yet, Theodore, without any remorse, snorts and says, "So you're ratting on me again, just because you're jealous of my education? You exaggerated things in your reports." He thinks I, a college dropout, I'm jealous of him? A graduate from a prestigious university. Theodore used to be this polite, humble, and adorable junior. But the moment he found out I was a dropout, his attitude changed entirely. I wouldn't mind if he did his job correctly, but there are too many complaints from his clients, and it's a headache. The next day, we both go to the client to apologize. What are you doing here now? Your job is to fix this. The president of the client company is aggressive with his words, but it's not uncommon for people in industrial settings. I'm used to it, but Theodore, with no field experience, stands there saying nothing. After calming the angry client and discussing future improvements, Theodore finally mutters a soft, "I'm sorry." I thought he'd be feeling down on the right back, but I was wrong. Why are field workers so uncivilized? Instead of showing any remorse, Theodore was back to bashing the client. That CEO pretty much advertises his lack of education with the way he talks. It was embarrassing to witness. Who made the client that angry? Maybe you should reflect on your work. My words fall on deaf ears. You're just out of touch because you've worked in those environments. Even so, if you're going to be in this line of work, you have to get used to it. Theodore laughs mockingly. What are you talking about? I only took this job to gain some mechanical knowledge. I don't plan on sticking around. Typically, people like Theodore would spend 2 years in service, then move to sales, but he's been here for 3 years. Nobody's going to move a guy with so many complaints to a sales position. He genuinely believes the bad reports are all because of me being jealous. If that's the case, all the more reason to get good at your service job. Show some sincerity to the client. Sincerity? When his attitude is that bad? There's no sincerity to talk about. Maybe it wouldn't bother me if he was on the same level as me, professionally speaking. I couldn't bring myself to say another word to Theodore. One day, I was on a business trip to set up some machinery. The test run didn't go as planned due to some glitches, so I had to stay overnight to fix it the next day. We had limited staff at the branch, so when major tasks like this came up, other local branches would help out. As I was looking for a place to eat near the hotel, someone called out to me. "Hey, what are you up to?" Turning around, there stood Theodore, arm in arm with a woman. "Oh, hey Theodore, good evening." I greeted the woman beside him and offered a handshake, which she accepted without a word. "This is my girlfriend, Selena. She's from around here." I felt like I'd seen her somewhere before, but I didn't dwell on it. Theodore invited me to dinner, and I accepted. After ordering, Theodore started to bloat. Actually, we just got engaged. She graduated from the same college as me, and her family is quite wealthy locally. Definitely on a fast track to success. That explained the dinner invitation. He wanted to show off his fiancée. As for Selena, she barely acknowledged me, not making eye contact and offering only occasional nods to Theodore. Dinner ended with Theodore dominating the conversation. When it was time to go, he excused himself to go to the restroom. Left alone with Selena, she broke the silence. "I've heard quite a bit about you from Theodore." Her eyes locked onto mine as she spoke with a certain coldness. I could tell Theodore had been bad-mouthing me. "You think your managerial role is a big deal, just because you've been at the company a few years longer? Could you please stop blocking Theodore's career? Certainly, the position of manager is something anyone can achieve through years of service and performance evaluations, and our direct boss is the area manager. For Theodore, I'm just a senior colleague, which isn't incorrect." Deciding it was futile to argue, I let it go. Theodore soon returned and wouldn't make eye contact, pretending like nothing happened. As I was leaving, I asked him about work for tomorrow, and he said he'd be helping out at this branch. Something felt off, but I didn't say anything because she was there. The next day, I went to troubleshoot a test run as planned, but Theodore never showed up. I felt uneasy, so I discreetly consulted the area manager and had him look into Theodore's business trip application. Turns out, on the day I met Theodore and his girlfriend, they were supposed to be on a business trip that involved an overnight stay. This was a clear false claim. The area manager asked to handle the rest, so I left it to them. Sometime later, the date for Theodore and his girlfriend's wedding was set. I wasn't invited and felt relieved, but a week before the ceremony, the area manager asked me to attend in their place. They were supposed to give the main speech but couldn't make it, so they asked me to do it. I initially declined, but accepted when they said they'd show up later. On the wedding day, I arrived early and bumped into Theodore and his girlfriend on my way to the waiting room. They looked surprised to see me. You know, my elite friends and I all have degrees from prestigious universities and work in top-tier companies. I didn't think you, a dropout, would fit in, so we didn't invite you. Theodore scoffed. I was asked to speak on behalf of the area manager who will be late. Once they arrive, I leave, I replied. The color drained from their faces. Are you trying to embarrass me by having a dropout give a speech? If the area manager can't make it, there's no need for a speech. Leave now, Theodore commanded. Cut ties with my husband. You uneducated pauper. His girlfriend chimed in. They left haughtily and walked into the waiting room, leaving me stunned. A new emotion welled up and my whole body started trembling. If they want to sever ties, then so be it. I stayed under the radar and waited for my turn to speak. Finally, it was my turn. I took a deep breath and stepped up to the mic. Though Theodore and his girlfriend glared, urging me to leave, I started my speech unfazed. Congratulations on your wedding. If you thought I'd stick to usual pleasantries, you're mistaken. Theodore isn't exactly commendable in his job, but this is a celebratory occasion, so I must use only the highest praises. Top-tier graduate, Theodore. You are exceptional in accumulating customer complaints at work. Your unrepentant and arrogant behavior, always blaming our clients, really showcases your thick skin. I'm always impressed. Stop it now. She stands up beside a flustered Theodore and shouts, overtaken by rage. You were supposed to cut ties with Theodore. Quit bullying him. The room starts buzzing, but I continue my speech unfazed. Our Ivy League grad Theodore is quite the trickster. He's been lying about business trips to go hang out with her, and claiming expenses for it? That's pretty bold, and clear embezzlement. Hey, cut it out. You're making this up. Theodore shouts red-faced, and starts coming towards me. She also stands up and screams. What's your evidence for all of this? Are you insane? The room descends into chaos, prompting the MC to nervously ask me to stop. I thought, maybe this is as far as it goes. At that moment, the door swings open with a bang. The ones who entered the now silent room were the area manager and the president of the client company. She goes pale when she sees the president heading straight for the bride and groom's table. So, you're lying about wanting to quit your job to marry me was a lie? Turns out, she had been working as a hostess at the club. I recognized her because I was once told at the club that she was the one I was supposed to marry. I had contacted the area manager to bring the president after realizing her true identity in her dressed-up appearance. I lent you money to quit your job and pay off your debt. Then you disappeared and planned to marry someone else? That is... She couldn't come up with any excuses when faced with the calm president. Even Theodore didn't know about her working in the hostess club. He storms back to her and confronts her. What is going on? She snaps back. You act all elite, but you are no good criminal. Even worse than a dropout. That dropout's just jealous of me. It's all lies. The area manager quietly stands in front of the shouting Theodore. We have evidence of your actions and will be reporting them to headquarters. You'll be suspended until a decision is made. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Theodore stands there, his face ashen. The president says to her, we'll be speaking through lawyers from now on. The once defiant woman breaks down in tears. The MC wisely suspends the ceremony and the guests are asked to leave. I leave the scene with the area manager and the president. Rumor has it that Theodore and she had planned to get their marriage certificate after the ceremony. But now, it's off. Both families are blaming each other and fighting over the wedding costs. Theodore was fired for misconduct. And they're calculating the exact amount he embezzled for restitution. The only thing that stings a bit is that the area manager also received a pay cut for poor supervision of his subordinates. Theodore had timed his business trips to coincide with days when major tasks like machine installments were happening, and the area manager had approved these trips. As for the woman facing fraud charges from the CEO for her sham marriage, she'll likely be tied up in court for a while. Of course, I've cut ties with Theodore and haven't spoken to him since that day. As for me, I'm just going to continue living my life. My wife, 35 female, and I, 37 male, were together for 12 years. She was a teacher at our town's high school, which I probably shouldn't name. She was a teacher there for 8 years before this happened. We talked about having kids, but she always said she felt like her students were the only children she could handle. There were families whose children she taught and helped graduate high school. A lot of these kids would become independent, working adults in the area, armed with the knowledge they learned from her. At school parties or meetings, graduates would often attend with their younger siblings and parents to thank their teachers and update them on their life. This is what happened often for my wife, and she was always so proud. I was there the night that one of her former male students, who was in his early 20s, returned to thank her and chat about the career path he chose. She was beaming as she spoke to him. More than any other time I'd witnessed her talking to someone. The only other time I saw her being like that was on our wedding day. I chalked it up to her passion as a teacher and knowing she improved her student's life. So, life continued on, as it always does, and everything was going great between us and in our careers. We were cuddling on the couch one night when we started to make out, and I pulled off her shirt. As I kissed down her neck, I immediately noticed a hickey on her chest. It completely threw me off. I hesitated, but stayed quiet. I decided to act like I didn't see anything. I'm pretty sure it was shock and denial that prevented me from telling her what I saw. Later, long after she fell asleep, I laid awake overthinking about the hickey. Eventually, I just got out of bed, grabbed her keys, and went to snoop in her car. I put my hands everywhere, feeling for anything weird. I checked a few receipts, but they were innocent enough. The trash wasn't suspicious either. I stuck my hand in the back seat pockets and found, to my dismay, an empty condom wrapper. I was completely numb, and I could only think of hiring a PI. I wouldn't be able to take off work to follow her, and she'd spot me or my car from a mile away. I didn't want her to know I knew anything, otherwise she might get extra sneaky. So, I took some money from my savings and hired a PI. I told him everything he needed to know, and he went to work. I couldn't help but call my parents to tell them what was going on. They basically told me they always thought she was capable of cheating. I was shocked. I asked them why they didn't bother telling me, and they said they wanted to let me make my own choice. My mom thought they were just being picky parents, but she could see now that their hunch was worth mentioning. The PI followed her for 4 weeks, undetected. He took several photos of them together, kissing, shopping, seeing a play, entering and leaving a hotel room, always hand in hand. The worst pictures were of them in the back seat of my wife's car, parked in the school parking lot. I was sick to my stomach when I realized that AP was just a boy. The very same boy my wife used to teach just 2 years ago. I was so upset. While my wife was teaching in her classroom the next morning, I took the evidence to the principal with the request that my wife be fired. He held an impromptu meeting right then and there, calling the higher-ups on video call. It took less than an hour for everyone to agree that this was a violation of the teacher's conduct and ethical rules. She violated school policy by engaging in sexual relations with a former student. As a result, the principal and I went to pull her out of the classroom to break the news to her that she was busted for sleeping with her former student. She was mortified, rubbing her mouth and her side. She started sobbing as the principal told her she was officially on leave, until a decision could be made regarding her employment. I was so pleased to see her suffering. This was all her fault. It was just a short time later that the decision was made to fire her. She got the news right after she moved out of my house, into a previous co-worker's. Weeks after that, she was served the divorce papers, although by now she knew they were coming. She basically accepted that her life was ruined over and done with. I soon found out that this young man my wife cheated on me with was a newlywed. His wife was just 19 years old. It was pretty easy to find her email address on social media, so I sent her a little present, that being the proof that her husband was already cheating on her. My ex and him both only thought of themselves and made very, very bad decisions that led to life-altering consequences. I am happy to report that since this, AP and my ex have both had to start a new life far away. My wife had trouble getting a job here since news spreads fast. I'm doing my best to move on from what happened and am taking it one day at a time. OP, there's absolutely no respect in her behavior and I applaud you for taking every step you took. Finding a hickey is a telltale sign that something is up. You took it a step further until you were sure something had to be done. You went about this in a very wise and proficient way. Although what happened is devastating, it's good that the truth came out and that you told his poor teenage wife the reality of the situation. There's always another chance to find true love and learn from these hard life lessons. I wish you the best of luck and thank you for sharing your story. Now let's get into our second story for today. My wife and I had an arranged marriage and it was miserable. Still, we conceived kids and I never ever would have cheated on her. She was still my wife and I had respect for our union, even though I didn't necessarily want to be married to her. I took care of her from the age of 18 and after 14 years of marriage, I trusted her. She lived each day as a stay-at-home mom while I provided for our family. She did everything for us at home, all the laundry, cooking, and cleaning. The kids were always happy, clean, and obedient. Honestly, I just thought she was meant to do this. In exchange for her hard work at home and as a mother, she asked me if she could go out with her friends every Monday and Tuesday night. I wondered why it always ended up being those 2 days, but I didn't ask. After how good she was to me and the kids, I would have felt bad telling her no. She just said she had friends and wanted to go out with them each Monday and Tuesday night. I stayed home with the kids and she always got back around 1 a.m. After the first couple weeks of her doing this, I asked how she met her friends in the first place. She told me that on Saturday mornings, she would take the kids to yard sales while I slept in. In the neighborhood, she met one woman named Taylor who introduced her to her group of friends. It made sense to me. I asked her why she never took any pictures with her friends on their nights out. My wife had a social media account, but she never posted anything like that on there. The answer I expected was that she didn't want her parents to know she was partying, but that's not the answer my wife gave me. Instead, she got really tense. She said they didn't like being in pictures. I thought that was a little strange. I asked her if she was friends with Taylor on Facebook and she immediately said no and excused herself to go to the bathroom with her phone. I checked her Facebook friends on my phone and saw someone named Taylor, but their profile picture wasn't very clear. When I clicked on the name, the page went blank as if it couldn't load it. When I refreshed the page, the name was gone from my wife's friends list. Then she came out of the bathroom. I instantly felt like we were 12 years old or something. I didn't like how this made me feel, so I asked her if she deleted Taylor from her friends list. She just very calmly said I didn't need to worry. Then she woke the kids up for school. One day, shortly after that, I came home from work and grabbed the mail. I noticed a letter from Capital One. I curiously opened it and felt my heart start pounding as I scanned the page and found out that my wife had spent $1,500. I was the angriest I'd ever felt in my life. This was not the kind of purchase either of us would make without talking about it first. I immediately went inside, showed her the letter, and requested to see the online statement and purchase history. She was terrified, but she opened the account and let me see it. There was a large storage house for $1,000. I asked what it was and where it was. She was already crying, knowing she was caught and wouldn't be able to lie about this. She confessed she bought it for another man. She looked sick to her stomach, so I asked her if she was in a relationship with this man. She nodded, ashamed it was Taylor. I was so angry. I remained loyal to this woman all these years, having my children with her, knowing it was the right thing to do, only for her to cheat on me. I took care of this woman since she was just a girl, only for all that effort to backfire. She disgraced me and our families. I told her I wouldn't pay for AP's gift and kicked her out. She was shocked, scared, and embarrassed. She hadn't been without me since she was 18, living with her parents. Our kids were crying, wondering why mommy was stuck outside. I wouldn't continue this relationship for another moment. When she realized I wasn't going to let her in, she had no one else to call but AP. She probably didn't even consider calling her parents, who would never speak to her again if they knew what she did. He came to pick her up, and I was even more furious. It was almost worse than letting her back in. Fast forward 1 month later. I already told my parents what she did to me, and how I was now having to face life as a single father. Somehow they refused to admit they made a poor arrangement for me. Divorce papers were being processed, but she hadn't been served yet, because I didn't know where she was staying. She called me, crying her eyes out. She said AP kicked her out too, because he had another girlfriend, who was 3 months pregnant with his child. When he found out she was pregnant, he wanted her to move in and my wife to get out. Without him, me, or her parents, she really had nowhere else to go, because the friends she claimed to have weren't real. She begged me to take her back into our marital home, and forget all about the divorce. She said she needed me, even though she was undeserving of my forgiveness. All I ended up doing for her was buying her food. I wouldn't let her come back into the home, much less live with us again. She was destined to be my ex, because she chose to cheat on me. Her parents were so embarrassed by her, and her actions, that she was disowned. In the divorce proceedings, she was ordered to pay me child support. She could only see the children if she met me somewhere, like a park, because she claimed to be homeless. I think she was staying somewhere really embarrassing and sketchy, so she preferred not to tell anyone about it. Somehow, she's still been able to meet us at the park for visits with the kids, but I never see a car. It's like someone drops her off for hours, or she really is homeless. She doesn't look happy, that much is clear. Opie, I'll start off by saying you did the right thing by kicking her out. Don't feel bad for the unfortunate situation she's found herself in. It is completely unfair to you and the children that she decided to start an affair. Even though it was an arranged marriage, and it wasn't the easiest romance, you remain loyal, just as she should have. Like you said, you took care of her, and then the kids, for 14 years. You guys were a family, where trust is an absolute must, if you want to avoid losing your sanity. It's a relief that you found out what happened by getting the mail. It's also a relief that she was just honest and told you the truth when she was caught. She should have communicated with you, in an attempt to save the marriage. Instead, she started an affair and lost her kids and home. It's purely karma that AP left her for another woman. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also,